Our customers go through a wide range of emotions as they connect with us, as they work through our courses, our programs, our products, as they make decisions about whether they should buy, as they make decisions about whether they should refund, as they make decisions about whether they should upgrade into the next program that you're offering, all kinds of emotions. And the interesting thing is, we pretty much know, those of us who've been doing this for a while, we pretty much know what those emotions are, and we pretty much know when they're going to happen. But here's the thing. So many of us just sort of ignore them. We never even talk about them. And I argue that there are huge advantages in not only not ignoring them, but actively talking about them. So what ends up happening is when you acknowledge people's emotions, you tell them that you recognize what they're experiencing, that you understand the emotions that they're going through, and that they're not alone in this. That's where we get into this concept of normalizing emotions, of letting them know. Because one of the things about emotions is when you feel like you're the only one who feels overwhelmed right now, then you feel like this isn't for me. Where in reality, when they come to recognize that virtually everyone who bought this program 3 weeks ago and is going through this course right now is feeling overwhelmed. Then all of a sudden they feel like, hey, I feel overwhelmed, but I'm in good company. I'm normal in this. Most people are experiencing this. And that normalization significantly improves their experience and causes them to want to stay and want to continue to work with you. Then it also brings up this other factor of managing those emotions. So once you've acknowledged it, help them to recognize that they're not alone in this, normalizing it, then it gives you the ability to manage it, to help them recognize that this overwhelm that they're feeling right now is what oftentimes happens just before people make the breakthrough. That oftentimes, and so you can go into all the psychology of how that stress of getting past where they already are, the established patterns they have, is normal just before you break through to the next level. That's just one example of this managing of emotions. But the key thing is you can't do that management of their emotions unless you acknowledge and normalize it. But once you do that, you've got tremendous power that comes from that. So let's talk about some places and times when people experience emotions. So here's an example in a course. So we know that the moment that they buy, they probably have two emotions running around. The first one is excitement, and the second one is skepticism. So they're excited to get going in this, but they're still a little bit skeptical because they feel like, wait a minute, you just asked me to invest a lot of money with you. Now prove to me that this is actually going to work for me. Prove to me that I was right in that decision. All right, so how can you acknowledge those two things? Well, the first thing you can do is you can say, all right, I know you're excited, and so here's what I'm going to do. The very first video that I'm going to do is going to build on that excitement. It's going to help you to set the goals for your progress and for the results that you're going to get out of this course. Then the skepticism steps in right after that, where you say, now I know that you just, as you invested in this, that you probably have some emotions running around right now, which is, hey, Don, prove to me that this is right for me. Prove to me that this will get results. All right, let me show you some things that we're going to be covering in this first module to help you understand how valuable this is really going to be for you. Now, by the way, I'm going to do a side journey right here. One of the gripes that I have about so many people's programs, they spend module 1 doing all the foundational stuff. If you spend module 1 doing all the foundational stuff, then you actually increase the skepticism because they haven't made any progress. One of the things you want to do right out of that week 1 is you want them to start making progress that they can look at and they can say, look, I've done this already. I'm already starting to move towards the transformation that I desire. And that enables them to overcome that skepticism, proves the excitement was right, and that carries on into future weeks as you manage those emotions. Then we know that in module 3, week 3, they're going to start feeling overwhelmed. They've already started feeling it. Overwhelm builds. And oftentimes, if you've got a 4-week refund date, they're starting to say, hey, I'm overwhelmed right now. I can't imagine where I'm going to be at week 8. And so I'm just going to refund right now and get out of this program. And so this is a very logical time to come in and acknowledge, hey, everyone feels this way. Why? Because I'm pushing you to be better, to grow, to do all these things. And hey, we've got a lot of calls and everything. And so that's the reason why so you're going to have an implementation week 2 weeks from now. So all you have to do is get to this date, and then you'll have a week where I'm not going to give you any more content, but you're going to have a week to work on this. So weeks 3 and 4 is when this whole overwhelm piece starts to come in. And that's the reason why I oftentimes, when I design a program, week 5 is an implementation, week 5 is an implementation week. It's a time when they can take everything, get caught up, or actually do the things that I've been teaching them as they go along. And so can you see how I'm doing this? I'm using their emotions to design the program. I'm acknowledging and helping them to understand how they can use those emotions to the best way possible. All right, here's another place in a launch. So when you're doing a launch, you know that you have purposely been placing some pressure to make decisions on people at a certain point. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling reluctant. They feel a lack of desire to make that decision at that point. And so by acknowledging that and then helping them to move past that, you turn it into a sale. Now, be very careful. Don't acknowledge it and take the foot off the gas. That's the worst thing you can do. If people are questioning whether they should buy or not, and you give them a logical reason not to buy right now, they will happily not buy. So what you need to do is acknowledge their emotion, help them to get through that in a way that moves them to the next step. The easiest way for them to remove that feeling of doubt of that question is to actually buy. And once they've done that, they've now got skin in the game. They're committed and they're moving forward towards actually doing more as opposed to moving forward with skepticism, doubt. How about this one? In a membership, the problem with most memberships, especially a low-cost membership, is that by the time they get to the third chunk of that membership, whether it's a week or a month or whatever, they're starting to realize, hey, I thought I was going to be getting a $2,000 course level of content, and I'm getting a very small fraction of that. Well, of course, you're paying $20 a month. You're only going to get a small fraction of that. So you have that emotion that we know right now is going to be there at that particular point in time. So you've got to manage that as they go along. Then you have a natural flow in a membership where they start out excited, they start to drop down. Then by the time they get to the months 3 and 4, they're not coming to the calls, not doing anything. You need to ramp that back up again. That starts happening again about month 7 and 8. And then it starts to die off at like months 10, 11, 12. The problem is that's right when you need renewals to be happening. And so recognizing these natural patterns that happen in every single membership site starts telling, here's where you bring on the key guests that everyone wants to hear and have them do a webinar with you. Here's where you want to give them an extra unannounced bonus to keep them involved. Here's where you want to maybe put a contest or a quiz or a self-evaluation in. You start building all those in, And then you can manage those emotions. All right, now I'm going to step off the things that are predictable and start talking about times when you need to be managing emotions. So when something good just happened. So for example, you hold a live conference, whether it's virtual or physical, you hold a live conference. At the end of that live conference, you've got two emotions running around. The first one is the people who actually attended are excited, they're revitalized, they're ready to go again. You need to manage their emotions to move forward so they don't just get home and get that buried in the family and in all the pressures of home and everything like that. Then you've got the second emotion of those who didn't attend, but who are seeing the people who did attend talk about with such excitement in the Facebook group about all the cool things that just happened, and they're feeling sort of they missed out. So it's not FOMO because they already missed out. So it's not fear anymore. It's regret having missed out. And so then you manage that by providing for them ways that they can feel like, even though I missed it, here I can get some of the value out of it. So when something good happens, you want to propel that initial rush of hormones, good hormones going on in their brain, into determination to move forward and act. Now, when something bad happens, you've got another issue. So something bad sometimes happens systemically. So, for example, something bad happens in the world, or it can happen across your entire program, the overwhelm, those kinds of things I talked about, or they can happen for a specific individual. So-and-so did a webinar. They were hoping to get $10,000 in sales out of it. They got 1,000. And so they personally need to be managed through that process for them personally. So recognize something bad has three levels that it can happen. Obviously, something good has three levels that can happen too, but you need to be aware of and manage each one of those at those levels. When they're frustrated is another time. This gets into the overwhelm, but also, let's say, for example, one of the things that happens in your program is that you give them a hard assignment that actually causes them to have to work. I'll give you an example of this. Let's say you've got a program that's teaching people how to market their stuff online. At the point when you give them the one where you ask them to actually go set up advertising, almost every one of your customers is fitting into this. They're frustrated because they're reluctant to advertise. They're reluctant to put out hard money. They're feeling like that it won't work. Maybe they put something out there and it doesn't work. They're frustrated at that moment. That is the moment that you have to deal with, manage. So you have to acknowledge, normalize, and manage that set of emotions so that they don't quit and so that they do try again and so that you can help them to recognize and improve that situation. I realize I'm talking fast. I've got a lot that I want to express in all this. Let's talk about for a moment here about environmental factors. Those are really key, especially in times when there's things like pandemics and mass shootings and huge fires or storms, or another environmental thing is like the holiday period, or knowing that summer vacation has arrived. And so in a non-pandemic year, they move from not having children at home for 8 hours a day to all of a sudden children are underfoot for 3 months. And so you've got environmental factors that have to be acknowledged. I was just coaching somebody today who we were talking about their particular offering and the timing of their offering. And we were talking about the environmental factor that is going on in the world right now, pandemic related, and how that's affecting people's emotions. And you need to not only acknowledge those, but actively manage around them and build your expectations as to what you're going to get in terms of your launch around those. So what do you do in this process of managing the emotions? 3 things. The first thing is to encourage. Emotion X has just happened. What do you need to encourage them to do? Not necessarily as a result, associated with that emotion. You just have had that emotion. Here's what you need to be encouraged to do to make sure that that emotion doesn't overcome you, isn't wasted, whatever that emotion was. So the first thing is encouragement. The second thing is sometimes you need to correct. Sometimes you need to help people recognize that the emotion that they're experiencing right now is actually not the emotion that will propel them towards where they need to go. So especially the ones about overwhelm, confusion, concern about results, those are all ones where you need to use corrective emotion management to help them recognize that that emotion they're experiencing right now is actually will hurt them if they continue to follow the path of that particular emotion. Obviously, this has to be handled sensitively and wisely, but it's real. It's the same kind of thing that an athletic coach does when his player just lost a match, didn't come in first place, whatever it is. That coach needs to not only encourage, but needs to correct that player if that player starts to fall down into the trap of doom of I'm never going to do any well, I just might as well quit, and all those things. The coach has to do corrective emotion. And then the third thing is to redirect that emotion. So let's use the example of the sports situation. So they just didn't come in where they thought they would, didn't get the time or the performance, so they didn't win the game, whatever it is. And so they're feeling like they should quit. A good coach will redirect that emotion of I failed to I can do better next time. I am going to beat that person next time. I'm going to beat my time next time. I need to work out harder. I need to eat better, whatever it is. And so redirecting is slightly different than correcting, because what you're doing is you're taking what might be a negative emotion and you're redirecting it into those elements that turn that emotion into positive things. All right. So I just took you through a whole primer about emotions and how to work with them. Now, we need to step back and just acknowledge something. Some of us, me included, are not primarily emotional beings. We're not empaths. We're not naturally empathetic. I'm one of those. If you are one of those people, you have to actively work with emotions. Consciously ask yourself on a regular basis, what are the emotions that this person is experiencing? Actively work to try to put yourself into their position so that you empathetically feel their emotions, so that you can better understand their emotions, so that you can better work with those emotions to help them to get to where they need to go. For those of you who are naturally empathetic, feel blessed. Because those of us who aren't, that's hard. That's a struggle. I can't give you the natural solution to this. It's something I'm actively working on in my own life. I will tell you, though, it's not something you can just ignore and hope it goes away. Every once in a while, you might have the ability to just say, hey, I'm autistic. I don't even see those things. And so I just teach about engineering, and everyone should just ignore all those emotions and go forward. Most of us, our audience is going to be a combination of people, some of whom need that emotional help, and some people who just are going to start to watch that video where you're going to be talking about emotions, and they're going to say, hey, I don't need this, and off they go. All right, I just realized I probably just offended some people in talking about the management of emotions. So, just like anything else, we need to actively manage our audience's emotions. Sometimes that involves actively managing ours to enable us to help them with theirs. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. What works for you? has this concept of acknowledging, normalizing, and managing emotions sparked with you? Can you see the value in this? Can you see where it would fit in your program? Can you see how the advantage of adding this into your program and actually making it an active part of what you do? I hope you're seeing it, because it can make a huge difference in your life and in the programs that you create. Let me know what you think. And consciously say, how can I help people manage their emotions? This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.